Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Listen up, punk. Are you afraid of change? Don't you just hate when your daily routine's affected by the slightest change in regularity? I know I do. That's why I use Surfshark VPN. These days, if you live in the good old US of A and want to watch some down-home WWE wrestling, you gotta watch on something called Peacock. But the layout can be confusing, and sometimes the live feed on Peacock just don't work. What's that? Oh, Peacock! Well, that sounds a lot dirtier. Thankfully, Surfshark is here to help. It lets you surf the web from anywhere in the world, meaning you can get access to different streaming libraries depending on where you land. And if you Americans have an active WWE Network account, you can just hop over to a country that still has the original, and you can watch your wrestling the way God intended. Not to mention, Surfshark can keep your personal information safe from hackers, streamline your gaming experience, and much more. What the hell you got to lose? Support Wrestling with Regret by downloading Surfshark in the description. Be sure to use the promo code REGRET to get 83% off your order, plus 3 extra months for free. It's as simple as that. Now, if you'll excuse me, time for my muffin break. They changed the recipe? Help!
Well, this past week was the 20th anniversary of this next show, and boy, do I feel old saying that. It's WWF's King of the Ring 2001 from June 24th at the Continental Airlines Arena in East Rutherford, New Jersey. This show was nominated by Jose Luis Aguilar, Joshua Lowry, Ben Wright, Alan Jolly, and Richard Ives over on patreon.com/wrestlingwithregret. This is the pay-per-view that truly kicks the Invasion storyline into high gear, but we got to go through a couple of false starts and some minor misfires along the way. Now, one of the biggest stories in the Federation at this time is that Triple H is going to be out for the rest of the year. He famously tore his quad the day after Judgment Day in that tag team title match where he and Steve Austin lost the belts to Chris Benoit and Chris Jericho, and famously carried on to finish the match and everything. You know, now that I think about it, that's a very pivotal episode of Raw in the Federation's history, not just because of Triple H suffering that injury, but also this is the beginning of Perry Saturn's gimmick where he gets knocked in the head a few too many times and he ends up going loopy and saying random phrases and "you're welcome" and falls in love with a mop. About 17,000 folks in the arena, 445,000 pay-per-view buys makes it the second most bought in the show's history, down a bit from the previous year's 475,000. Jim Ross and Paul Heyman on commentary, and hey, it's him, it's D.D. Pim. Diamond Dallas Page makes his way through the crowd carrying a sign. Of course, Page, the previous week on Raw, revealed himself as the stalker of The Undertaker's wife, Sarah. For several weeks leading up to this show, we saw a lot of grainy footage in this kind of voyeuristic style, narrated by a distorted voice, which is actually just Vince McMahon's voice put through a filter, and it's all very creepy stuff. The Undertaker's freaking out and getting very upset about this. The go-home show, Page showing up on Taker's bike that week did the big reveal, which got a massive pop, which is a pretty funny reaction for a stalker. He says the quickest way for he, a 3-time world champion, to be famous in the World Wrestling Federation is to go for the biggest dog in the yard and fight him. He comes in through the crowd, still allowed to enter the ring and cut a promo, and they explain it's because The Undertaker has allowed him to show up and do this. He says the footage he's shown of Sarah so far was just PG, but he's got his own personal collection, gives him a big old boner. He says he'll kick the big dog's ass all over his own yard tonight, then will be the first WCW star to set foot in Madison Square Garden the next night on Raw. He says, here is his tick. He says he'll be in the front row with a big old "Make Me Famous" sign. He's begging for it. As somebody who watched the programming as it was happening, I was 16 years old at the time watching this, I was very intrigued by the storyline. I was always going, who could this possibly be? And then when Page revealed himself, I was excited because I was a fan of DDP and WCW and I want to see him do big things. I thought, wow, what an impact, what a huge way to make a debut. And so I was going along for the ride at this point, but then as this show unfolds, man, I really start to sour on this angle pretty quick. Back at the announce desk, Jim and Paul Paul revealed there's a big rumor going around that Chris Benoit or Chris Jericho could defect to WCW as early as tomorrow night, and if one of them wins the championship in the triple threat main event, things could really get thrown askew. It's one of the many things I feel they threw at the wall at the beginning of this Invasion storyline to try and see what made stick, because, spoiler alert, nothing of the sort happens here. It would have been interesting if either of them jumped to WCW, but it doesn't happen either way, and it was kind of forgotten about after Monday that same week. So it's one of those things where, is it just them throwing another wrinkle into the story to try and get people to care, or was this, as they say, plans changing? But hey, enough of that. We've got a King of the Ring tournament to wrap up, beginning with the semifinal match between Kurt Angle and Christian. Kurt Angle is last year's King of the Ring, and he's made it clear he wants to pull a repeat performance, be the first and only man to win back-to-back King of the Ring tournaments. Technically, though, Bret Hart is the first and only person to do that, but that was in 91 and 93. 91, it was not a pay-per-view yet, so I guess according to the Federation canon, Bret's back-to-back wins don't count. Also, it's kind of a neat semifinal bracket because you have Team Wreck occupying the final four. You've got Kurt, Edge, Christian, and Rhyno, all friends and storyline and everything. They're all here in the semifinals. Christian begins on top after hitting Kurt with a cheap shot before the bell, but Kurt fights back with a big suplex. Fighting on the outside, back in the ring, Kurt launching Christian off the top and into the barricade. More suplexes by Angle, Christian with a nice heel kick. Then Shane McMahon, the owner of WCW, appears in the ramp. He's beefing with Kurt Angle, more on that later. Goes to the moonsault, but Angle misses. Christian can't put him away. Angle counters the Unprettier into the ankle lock. We get a rope break. Christian hits the Unprettier after all, goes to the cover, but then Shane pulls him off. And for the rest of this match, Heyman and Ross are just totally at a loss. What's Shane McMahon's agenda here? I thought he was fighting Kurt Angle, but he's helping him here. What could this possibly be? Gosh, I wonder. Anyway, after that Angle slam over the ropes, back in, Angle pins and wins, advancing to the next round. I give it 2.5 stars out of 5. The big story here is not Christian and Kurt by any means. It's more Kurt and Shane. Again, the announcers being kind of oblivious to what Shane's motives are here is kind of off-putting. But the match itself, though, I thought was well executed, if a little short. And what's even more impressive is Kurt apparently suffers a concussion in this opening match, and he has 2 matches left to go. I think if the circumstances were the exact same in 2021, even if it caused so much chaos in the pay-per-view rundown, I'm not sure the company would allow him to continue and wrestle 2 more matches. Just saying. JR and Heyman appear to be stalling for time, speculating more about Shane looking even more foolish in the process. Then backstage, the WWF champion Stone Cold Steve Austin and his wife Deborah are chatting. Coach comes in for some questions. Austin says he's waiting for Vince to show up. Coach reminds him Vince isn't coming tonight. He's such a kidder. Coach talks to him about the Jericho Benoit rumor and how they could take the title to WCW, and Austin just gives a 1,000-yard stare. Off we go to scenic East Rutherford, New Jersey. And look, there's New York, where we wish we could be, but oh, cruel fate. Paul Heyman at ringside, the voice of reason with DDP, saying that what he's doing here tonight is a little brazen, but as DDP talks about how big his balls are, suddenly the big screen shows some sneaky voyeuristic footage of Paige at a diner. DDP, very frustrated by this, says his personal privacy has been invaded, and we'll just see how the storyline goes, but DDP clearly not pleased by getting a taste of his own medicine. Next King of the Ring semifinal match as Edge takes on Rhyno, who's been getting quite a little push as of late. He's been a multiple-time hardcore champion across the last couple of months. He's been wrestling on TV with guys like Jericho and Benoit and the Intercontinental Champion Kane for several weeks during the build of this show, so he's definitely getting a bit of love here this time. The action is quick from the beginning as the guys trade blows. Edge with a running dropkick to Rhyno, who falls off the apron and splats on the floor. Ouch. Fight on the outside, Edge is vaulted into the barricade. Rhyno exposing the turnbuckle and hurls Edge chest first into it. Rhyno locks in the body scissors on Edge, which JR just adores on commentary. If you want JR to fall in love with you on commentary, just do some old school wrestling move that's not been done in a long time, and he will just gush about it. I'm reminded of when Triple H put the Indian Deathlock on Booker T at WrestleMania 19, and Jim spent a good minute and a half talking about it. Speaking of rare moves, big top rope splash by Rhyno, which connects. Edge comes back after dropping Rhyno on the ropes. We get a top rope sunset flip from Edge. He's able to hold on and go for the pin. Rhyno going for the gore, but Edge counters with his own spear. They practically knock heads. Edge with the Impaler DDT to win and advance to the finals. I give this one 3.5 stars out of 5. It's my favorite match of the King of the Ring tournament portion of this show. I like the story they told here. The action was pretty much fast from the get-go and never really slowed down. Some hard hits and harder looking falls throughout, but they made it look good. So yeah, good work by Edge and Rhyno here. Spike, Dudley, and Molly Holly, just a couple of star-crossed lovers, but man, you just want to root for them. Spike and Molly, the runs of their respective litters in the Dudley and Holly clan, they start out as friends, but it turns into something more. They become boyfriend and girlfriend, and throughout the weeks we see Spike standing up for Molly multiple times, like sacrificing himself for her when the Dudleys try and powerbomb her through a table and everything. It's a very endearing story, and again, it just makes you really want to root for Spike here. Of course, Bubba Ray and Devon and Crash and Hardcore are having none of this. The Dudleys say the Hollies can't be trusted, the Hollies say the Dudleys can't be trusted, and they're all this bickering and infighting, and finally, both Spike and Molly have been kind of kicked out of their own families, so these two have no one to fall back on but each other. Will true love prevail? It's a very endearing storyline. You love to see it. So then, early in the night on Heat, Spike declares he wants to challenge Bubba Ray and Devon for the tag team championships, but needs to find a partner. So we fast forward to the present point in this show where Spike says he's got a big surprise lined up for who his partner is going to be. Bubba and Devon come in and browbeat him for a bit, call he and Molly disappointments. They tell off Spike, and they don't seem all that concerned. Backstage, Taz interviews Chris Jericho. My guy Joey Numbers says one of you is going to WCW, Cole. Jericho with a lot of wordplay where he goes, yes, I heard the rumors. Absolutely not. I was not aware you knew about the rumors. It all feels like so stupid, knowing that it's going to go absolutely nowhere in like 24 hours. The Dudley Boys make their way to the ring, the new tag team champions as of last Thursday on SmackDown when Steve Austin cost the Chris's, Benoit, and Jericho those belts, allowing the Dudleys to win. It makes sense because Benoit and Jericho weren't really doing anything with the belts after they won them in the first place, and they weren't really helping anybody in that position. Spike's mystery partner is the big red Intercontinental Champion Kane, and the fight begins in earnest. Bubba goes to throw Spike, but Kane catches him, throws him back into Bubba's face. Spike working with Devon. Devon appears to hurt his leg on a leapfrog, but it's a short-lived ruse. Bubba comes in and just hucks Spike 15 feet in the air on a backdrop. I love it. Spike dodging a Devon headbutt. The hot tag to Kane, who's all over the place, just overpowering the champs, and whoop, we got a little miscue with the pinfall breakup. The crowd didn't like that. Kane then picks up his own partner, Spike, and chucks him onto Devon and Bubba. Spike with a Dudley dog, but this time Devon does break up the count in time. The Dudleys with a very heelish was up because they don't say the line. Spike goes to the Dudley dog again, but he can't pull it off. Eats a 3D, and the Dudleys retain. Devon gets the table and has evil intentions, but Kane makes the save, chokeslamming Bubba through it. They get the pyro, so the fans at least kind of end this segment a little bit happier. I give it 2 stars out of 5. It's not a terrible match. It's like standard tag team fare, but that little missed communication with the broken up pinfall and it not happening was, oof, that was a little rough is all. Honestly, the story of Spike and Molly and their relationships with their elder cousins is way more interesting on the whole than this particular match. This is a small chapter in the greater story. Backstage, a beaten up Edge is warming up for his next match. When Christian shows up, Edge thinks he's just going to whine some more, but Christian just wishes him good luck against Kurt Angle. Back to DDP, we see some more voyeuristic footage, and DDP now screaming at The Undertaker to make him famous. Just keep in mind, we're not done with this arc yet, and we're going to see more of these segments, and DDP is already just flipping his lid. Like, it's just, once you've already kind of reached the point where you're so angry and you're screaming, you have nowhere to go, and it's everything else after this feels totally redundant. Meanwhile, in WWF news, no, this makes me so sad. Poor Billy Gunn, last year's King of the Ring winner, who went completely bust ever since then. I mean, that loss to The Rock at SummerSlam '99 was what really did him in. And now here he is. He's the main eventer of the theme restaurant. That is what the King of the Ring from last year is doing. So, in an alternate timeline, this could be your future, Edge. So he's asked, how does he feel about not being there at the tournament? He goes, how do I feel? That's pathetic. On we go to the finals as Kurt Angle takes on Edge. Before the match, Angle was some sportsmanship, saying he doesn't want anything to get between he and Edge's friendship. Then he tries to bargain with Edge to lay down for him so he can be fresh against Shane later in the night and spare Edge the embarrassment. It's the right and friendly thing to do, Kurt says, but Edge has none of it and the match commences. Paul Heyman finally begins to figure out why Shane may have helped Kurt win earlier when Kurt suplexes Edge out of the ring and onto the floor. Angle working over Edge for a couple of minutes. Edge with an interesting counter into a roll-up. Edge fights out of the sleeper, tries to come back, but Kurt throws him out of the ring once again. Edge with a nice Hurricane Rana off the top. Edge countering the Angle slam, but Angle blocks the DDT attempt. Goes for an ankle lock. It turns into a roll-up. The Edge-o-matic, but then Christian shows up and distracts the ref, almost costing his brother the match, but he does kick out. Edge lays the referee out. Angle with the ankle lock in. Edge is tapping, but there's no ref. Shane McMahon appears once again, hits Angle with a spear before fleeing the scene. Angle walks into the Impaler. Edge pins and wins and is the new King of the Ring. And JR on commentary, why did Shane do this? Like, why the fuck do you think he did it? You're all so you were so close to getting it. I give this one 2.5 stars out of 5. This match was fine. It was some great counter work near the end that I really was impressed by in this thing. And again, the story is Shane getting involved, making a lot of sense to everyone on planet Earth except the announce team for whatever reason. And also, I just felt kind of bad because the crowd didn't really care all that much that Edge won this thing. They popped. Yeah, sure, they cheered because he's the good guy and everything. But there's just such a lack of punch pomp with the King of the Ring as a whole. I mean, they have this whole pay-per-view here, and the tournament feels kind of like an afterthought to these other bigger picture things, which is a common thread we saw in the last several King of the Ring pay-per-views. It was always kind of in the back burner, but at least there would be some kind of excitement and, yeah, pomp, like I said, to this, but not so much here with this one. They're like, oh, he won. Good for him. Of course, Edge would get his trophy ceremony the next night on Raw. He would promise not to Billy Gunn his reign as King of the Ring. And of course, as what happens with him and Christian, well, we'll have to wait and see. Taz is now backstage with Chris Benoit. He asks the Wolverine if there's any truth to the WCW rumor. Benoit gets in his face and asks, what the hell kind of question is that, before saying, actually, it's a pretty good one. Is it though? DDP still at ringside. The P stands for paranoid. Coach backstage with Edge. How does it feel to win King of the Ring? Edge says it reeks of royalty. Christian walks in to say he was just trying to help Edge out, and Edge goes, well, yeah, what else would you be doing? He says the era of awesomeness begins. Well, in one of the only times you'll ever see the Light Heavyweight Championship defended on pay-per-view again, Jeff Hardy is here to take on X-Pac of the X Factor. Hardy beat Jerry Lynn for the belt a couple of weeks ago on SmackDown, and I would say that Jerry Lynn and the WWF might make an interesting video topic one day, but sadly that video would only go maybe 5 minutes. A fun fact here, as the Hardys and X Factor were feuding all month, Eddie Guerrero was actually also involved as well, helping out the Hardys, but there was always this running story of, can he be trusted? Well, we never saw the conclusion of the storyline, because like right in the middle of what Eddie's doing, he's taken off TV to go to rehab, and then a few months later, he's arrested for a DWI and is released from the WWF shortly thereafter. And I was always kind of surprised reading that tidbit, because I knew it had happened, or I knew Eddie was gone and then fired, but I was always, in my memory, I always thought Eddie got the DWI in June and then was fired, not like he spent time in rehab and then got the DWI. So of course it does have a happy ending in the story though. Eddie couldn't finish this angle of like a will he or won't he betray them, but he would come back to the company the next year after cleaning up his act, and of course we all know the rest of the story. X-Pac comes out to the Uncle Cracker theme, and they're still promoting Fully Loaded for next month. That's going to change real soon. Some good cruiserweight stuff to start us off here. Hardy leaps off the barricade onto X-Pac. Heyman doing a great job on commentary, putting over X-Pac's prowess and how he helped change the perception of light heavyweights in America. If there's one thing I think we can all agree on, is that X-Pac, Sean Waltman, never really got his due as a performer until he had already kind of come and gone. I think I'm one of those fans who grew up not really liking X-Pac or appreciating him, but the older I got, the more I understood wrestling. Looking back, like, man, this dude was like a really, really good worker, and he made everyone look good. And yeah, I'm glad somebody on commentary said at the time at least. X-Pac works the abdominal stretch with a rope assist, dumps Hardy out and hits a springboard crossbody and goes, yeah! X-Pac goes to the Bronco Buster. Heyman yells, Chief J Strongbow lives! Hardy dodges and makes a comeback. Awkward collision out of a leapfrog in the corner. That looks pretty gnarly. They go for it again and get a whisper in the wind and a 2 count. X-Pac with the X Factor. The referee counts the 3 but then waves it off after he catches Jeff's foot already on the ropes. Another X Factor's countered into a jawbreaker. Jeff throwing X-Pac off the top rope, hits the swanton to win and retain. I give it 2.5 stars out of 5. The match had some good points throughout, even though it got a little bit clunky and a couple of points as we saw. I think the booking of the finish was confusing to me, because that whole set of circumstances where it's like the 3 counts waved off and the person who benefits from that gets to win in the end, that feels like the roles were reversed, where it's like, shouldn't the heel be the one who benefits from that, not the babyface? But be that as it may, I thought it was an okay match. And again, good seeing the light heavyweight title defended on pay-per-view, because I can't think of too many more times it happens. Time is a flat circle, and William Regal's an authority figure in the World Wrestling Federation. The commissioner talking to his houseboy, his words not mine, Tajiri. Tajiri debuted last month after Judgment Day and has been Regal's loyal servant ever since. Steve Austin barges in and frantically calls Vince McMahon to relay the rumors surrounding Benoit and Jericho. Regal with some big foreshadowing then, telling Vince, if you can't trust Steve Austin, who can you trust? Austin tells Vince to get to the show pronto. We're back at ringside with DDP, who's chewing the scenery big time here. Finally, Paige has had enough, gets in the ring and calls the Undertaker out. And this time the camera turns around and it's Sarah. She's been filming this whole time and says it's time for DDP to become famous. Out comes the Undertaker, and well, let's just say it does not go well for the master of the Diamond Cutter. Taker spends nearly 5 straight minutes just beating the hell out of DDP here. Paige with a couple of shots in, but it just doesn't matter. It's just totally egregious one-sided beatdown here. Sarah films the whole thing. World star. Paige finally flees to the crowd, and that's the end of that. You know what? It never gets any easier to relive. I feel the same way watching this stuff now as I did when I recapped this in my DDP episode many years ago on this channel. My opinion is the exact same now as it was. Hey, look, I understand, I get the idea of DDP getting his just desserts. That was fine as a concept on its own, but with DDP's heart rate already through the roof, from the very first segment where this begins to happen, it just, by the end of it, the crowd's bored because they're not seeing anything new from this, and then the beatdown happens and it was what it was, just the beginning of a long string of humiliations for poor Diamond Dallas, and yeah, that sucked. Stone Cold's in the parking lot, anxiously awaiting the arrival of Vince McMahon. Then it's time for our street fight as Kurt Angle, who's already 2 matches deep on the night, wrestling the owner of WCW, Shane McMahon. Last time we saw Shane, he bought WCW from under his father's nose on the final Nitro, beat him 6 days later at WrestleMania 17. And then at Judgment Day, Kurt Angle fought Chris Benoit to reclaim his gold medals, which were tucked in Benoit's tights. After getting the medals back, he wanted to do a reenactment of his medal ceremony from 1996 in Celebration, only to be interrupted by Shane. Shane calls Kurt a wussy. Them's fighting words. We do get one of the coolest Angle slams of all time as a result of that, off the podium and through the sea of confetti. It's a great visual. So we find out they're going to be wrestling and they're going to have a street fight. And the whole thing is Angle knows he's wrestling up to 3 matches because no matter what happens with the King of the Ring, he was going to wrestle Shane while also simultaneously trying to get his back-to-back King of the Ring wins. And every week since this medal ceremony happened, Shane has been sending WCW wrestlers to Raw and SmackDown to cause general chaos, like Lance Storm at first and Hugh Morris and Stacy Keibler for starters. These are the building blocks that would lead us to the Invasion storyline. The match begins and Angle's all over Shane to begin this thing with amateur takedowns and suplexes. Angle gets a cut in his face from a Shane McMahon potato, and now he gets in the referee's position, daring Shane to do something about it, makes him pay for it. Not going well for Shane in the early going. Back in the referee's position, Shane just kicks Angle in the ribs to make a comeback. Shane with a flying nothing off the barricade, but it actually connects. Shane grabs a kendo stick and starts swinging, slams Kurt into the barricade, tackling him into the steps. Shane throwing more weapons in the ring, somehow applies the ankle lock to the ankle lock guy, but Kurt fights out of it. Shane with the worst sharpshooter I've ever seen. Angle fights out of it with the kendo stick. Shane at the top rope goes for a shooting star press, but he just hits a trash can. The fighting moves to the outside and up the ramp. Shane suplexing Kurt on the floor, and just look at the pain in Kurt's face. That's the look of a guy who just broke his tailbone, and he has to wrestle the rest of the match like that. You can see how tired these two are. Kurt just trips on Shane's foot and eats shit. Going over to the set, and you might know where this is going. Kurt tries to suplex Shane into one of those glass panels. It does not break, but Shane's head almost does. The sickening thud of his head conking on the concrete floor. It is so gross. Now, as has been mentioned many times before in retrospectives about this match, the glass was not what they expected it to be. It was supposed to be the easy sugar pane breakaway glass you see in movies and everything, but apparently that glass couldn't withstand the impact of the pyro at the beginning of the show. So the props guy, whoever, put some stronger glass up there, plexiglass essentially there. But no one bothered to tell Kurt and Shane this fact, because as they're doing the suplex, it's not budging, the glass is not breaking. The second suplex works though. Shane does go through. Then Kurt tries suplexing Shane from the inside out. First 2 suplexes don't do the trick. It's getting really bad here. Finally, Kurt just heaves him out. This just looks horrific. Kurt puts Shane on an equipment cart and wheels him back to the ring. They're both covered in blood, and Angle, you again just see the pain radiating through his body here. There's a cover and a kick out. Kurt grabs a trash can lid, but Shane hits a low blow and is still in the fight. Shane with the angle slam and a close kick out. Kurt striking Shane with a wooden board, a super angle slam off the wooden board from the top rope. Kurt pins and finally wins. How do you not give the ultimate score to the ultimate performance? I give this one 5 stars out of 5. And yes, this match was like not the cleanest in the world. There are a couple of sloppy moments, mostly Shane McMahon's fault. But it's just to see what both these guys incurred to make this match what it was, whether it was intentional or otherwise, really just makes this match legendary. The fact that Kurt, who had already suffered a concussion in his first of 3 matches, carries on and breaks his tailbone on the floor and keeps going. Oh my God, what a machine. And again, the glass thing, I kind of compare this to like the Lesnar-Angle matchup from WrestleMania 19, where it's like, yeah, like the botched shooting star press was messed up, but that makes the match in a way even more intense and better in the sense because like, oh my God, this thing happened like no one could have predicted happening. Same thing with the glass. Even though the glass not breaking really messed them up probably, and to the point where Vince McMahon almost broke character and just got out there to stop the match out of concern for his son, that makes the match match better. It makes it more dramatic, and like it's harder to watch for a time, but then like how they recover from it and how it pays off is just brilliant. And so yeah, this is like one of the best matches of the entire year. The fact that, you know, we always discount Shane McMahon, you know, in the build to these matches, but then when it comes through in the clutch, Shane's able to always perform here. And again, Kurt was just an absolute machine to go through what he did to make this match work. And actually, one of my favorite parts about this thing is afterward, when Shane's being carried out, Jim Ross says, "This is probably going to be Shane's last match in a WWF event." Sure thing, Jim. Austin goes back to the parking lot, still no sign of Vincent McMahon, but his number is up and it's time for the main event. A triple threat match for the WWF Championship as Stone Cold defends against Chris Benoit and Chris Jericho. Like I said at the top of this review, a lot has happened since Judgment Day. Triple H tearing his quad the next night on Raw and really throws the whole booking of this show off kilter, because apparently the original plan was Jericho and Austin in a singles match and Triple H and Benoit in a singles match. But with Triple H being hurt, this match has been melded into a triple threat. Another issue is the same week Benoit and Jericho won the tag belts, they defended it on SmackDown in the third ever TLC match, considered the forgotten TLC match. In that match, Benoit injures his neck and has to go in for surgery, but it doesn't stop him from going full tilt for the next several weeks and wrestling a perfectly regular pace for himself in the build to this matchup. Austin actually beats Benoit to retain the championship 2 shows in a row during this build, one of which is in Calgary, where they ham-fistedly recreate the Montreal Screwjob. That was special. Then the occasionally appearing Mick Foley and Linda McMahon announced that Austin has to defend in the triple threat, and Austin, growing increasingly paranoid and unhinged, beats the bejesus out of Michael Cole on SmackDown, which makes Vince mad because Cole has threatened to sue. Vince has had enough and tells Austin he'll be on his own at King of the Ring, he's not going to be at the show, and if Austin loses, the partnership between them is over. The match begins with Austin getting jumped on the outside by the Chris's as he tries to flee. Put in the corner, takes multiple chops. Jericho gets the walls in, but only for a moment before Benoit stops him and dumps him out of the ring. Benoit and Austin work each other for a good while, Austin taunting Benoit by holding the belt in his face, saying, "See that? It'll never be yours!" And he was right. Jericho finally starts getting back up, but Austin just throws Benoit into him. Austin goes for a stunner, but Benoit shoves him into the referee. Hits a stunner of his own. Well, there's a rare sight. Benoit decks Austin with a title belt, that classic babyface move. Jericho stops the 3 count. Austin and Jericho trade walls attempts, they exchange strikes. Jericho going for the lion salt, but he takes some knees. Benoit re-enters the match with the chair. Again, classic babyface tactic. He goes for Austin, but dinks Jericho instead. Austin hits 2 straight superplexes to Jericho, but he stays resilient. Benoit grabbing Austin, hitting 5 straight German suplexes before being taken to Dick Kick City. All 3 men are down. Jericho gets Austin in the walls. Benoit puts the crossface on Austin at the same time. Austin taps, but the referee does not declare a winner. There can only be one. The Chris's fight as Austin grabs a chair. Benoit immediately makes him regret it. Suddenly, Booker T appears at ringside. The WCW champion jumps Austin, throws him through the Spanish announce table, breaking Austin's hand in the process. Hell of a debut, kid. Jericho with a moonsault to Austin. Benoit kicks Jericho out of the ring, hits the flying headbutt. Jericho pulls out the referee. Benoit with a top rope back suplex to Jericho, and he seemingly knocks himself out in the process because Austin just slowly crawls over to Benoit, covers, and wins. Austin retains the title by the skin of his teeth and hobbles back up the ramp as we fade to black. I give it 4 stars out of 5. Very competitive affair in this matchup with all 3 guys. Very physical stuff. The finish kind of surprised me too, because I remember Austin wins, and I know that Austin gets jumped by Booker T, but I'm like, how does he survive this thing? How does he get from point A to point B and end up retaining in this one? I like how they saved Benoit and Jericho fighting one-on-one for considerable length until the very end of the match, where ultimately it proves to be their undoing. Good storytelling there. We saw some moves that were pulled out here that like I just forgot they ever did. And also credit goes to Benoit for pushing through his neck injury and, you know, still fighting through it to deliver in this matchup here all the way to the end. This would be the last match we saw Benoit in for a very long time. He would be gone after this and undergo his neck surgery. We'd see him the following year make a return, but it's just crazy to think, like, realizing that 2 of the company's biggest players at the time, Triple H and Chris Benoit, are just not present for what would become the biggest storyline of the year. My grade for King of the Ring 2001 is a B-. It's a pretty enjoyable pay-per-view on the whole, and honestly, it wouldn't be what it was without the performance by Kurt Angle. 3 matches, one of which being the match of the night and one of the best matches of the year, in my opinion. What a gutsy performance and fighting through those injuries to make it all work. The main event, better than I remember it being. I thought it was not going to be a great match, but it was actually pretty darn good. My only real big gripe about this was just the poor treatment of DDP, and I guess the King of the Ring tournament not being given, I think, the respect that it should have had for it being the namesake of the pay-per-view. But, you know, that's kind of like a preacher to the choir thing. It's like, it's just what they did. It's, you know, the fact that they had it at all, I guess, is impressive enough. So if you want to play a role in determining which shows I look at, be they good, bad, or somewhere in between, go to patreon.com/wrestlingwithregret, become a $10 backer or above, and you'll have the chance to nominate classic shows for me to review. Now, some of you, even as far back as 2 weeks ago when I announced I was reviewing this show, might have had a feeling as to what was up. So this feeling that you're feeling right now, I'm here to confirm those feelings, because for the first time since my Fall of WCW arc, I'm going to be doing a cohesive thread of classic pay-per-view reviews. And this, as it is the 20th anniversary, it's only appropriate we look at the entire Invasion storyline, from King of the Ring all the way to Vengeance. After Survivor Series, I'm going to be looking at how the angle began and how it finally wraps up. There will be some other non-WWF pay-per-views from different points in history I will be covering throughout the rest of the year, so it's not just a huge glut of WWF 2001 shows to break it up. But that's the plan here, is to cover the Invasion from start to finish, and I can't wait to look back and just see it wasn't really as bad as I said it was many years ago on this channel. We're going to find out. But until then, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.